Hey everyone, Colin Christianson here with Tenacious Ventures. We're at the Northwest Event Show, and we are talking to people on the floor, some of the booths, and some of the speakers on stage. And today, I'm here with Reese Tanimura. They are the managing director at Northwest Folklife. I've been to the Folklife Festival multiple times, and I've had so much fun every time I've gone. I used to live right across the street from there. So why don't you give us more of a behind the scenes on what that is? I would even love to know what the inspiration was to create it in the first place. So give us more of a background on it.
Yeah. So this year will be our 53rd festival and in operation. And it is one of the largest, I guess, what we would say festival of its kind in that it is ticketless. It's you don't have to register. It's at Seattle Center, open borders. You just walk in. We by donation.
Yeah.
It's a huge collaboration between our staff, which is year-round is about 11 to 12 folks, and community members from all kinds of communities, ethnic and genre communities, whether it's dance, whether it's specifically like a Mexican folkloric dance community, or whether it's the hip hop community, right? So basically, the inspiration for it was folks who were really passionate about this idea of gathering community to see each other, to see their neighbors, and to see their traditions and the both the shared aspects of culture as well as the unique aspects. In 1972, a collaboration between the Seattle Folklore Society, several entities around, including some seed money from the national parks, I believe. Don't hold me to that. There was a national entity involved. I believe it was national parks. And essentially, it was as a lot of it, has evolved into where we have staff now, but a lot of it, as it was inviting different communities. It was inviting indigenous communities, inviting the Hawaiian dance community, inviting the bluegrass community and contra dance community to this gathering. And at Seattle Center, had just the decade before had the World's Fair and had the flag pavilion. And so they had everything from, stages at the mural, which they still do, some indoors and some of the sort of exhibition areas, but a lot of it was gathering folks together to sort of do this out in the open amongst the public and invite people to do some of this activity with them, workshop style or just participatory.
Oh, it's fun.
Calling,
It's fun. Anytime, and it's unique experiences too. It's not your cookie cutter, typical kind of event. You get to explore different cultures, different ways of life, different different behaviors, community groups. It's definitely if you're the type of person that likes being able to explore different cultures, different people, different ways. It's an amazing place to go to experience that.
Yeah. I mean, if you're around on Sunday night, you'll get swept into a Balkan circle dance, right?
Yeah.
And you could be in the Cornish courtyard singing, peace songs or songs of Pete Seeger or, any number of kind of participatory arts. We also have this maker's space where there's artisans who are doing everything from woodworking and lathing to fiber arts to mask making. So I think it's showing all those different aspects of cultural expression and practicing, and then really a lovely review of the Pacific Northwest, right? Because it's dance, it's music, it's foodways, it's a way to show this amazing asset we have that is culture, and the really high diversity of it in our Northwestern region.
Yeah. So I know you for a while you went virtual during the pandemic, and now you're getting back to in person. So moving forward, what are some of the innovations and things you're planning to do with the new events? And then Is there anything you see coming down the pipeline that you're going to innovate on for your event specifically?
Yeah, we're really excited because we think of the festival as a sort of a convening point. It's an entry point. It's a summation point for things that we do year round. So some of the new things in the festival are things like the Kuleana corridor. I was talking today about reuse at the festival. We really need to think about our relationship to the earth, and food justice is involved with that, environmental sustainability. So that's at like the K-Prom corridor between McCaw Hall and X Hall. There will
Yeah.
be a lot of folks talking about sustainable farming, urban gardening, like the Danny Wu Gardens, right? And then we have this maker space. We also have the X Hall has performance dance, but we have added a component where we really talk about fashion and wearables and how culture is expressed through those wearables in the X Hall. And this year, we're really excited to launch a creative ecosystem summit on the Friday of Folklife. So one thing that maybe it was less known, especially pre-pandemic, we're using loft areas to have a lot of like workshops and conversations and panels, somewhat like this, talking about different issues. And what we've done is we've sort of convened them into the Friday of the festival, the kickoff, to bring this idea forward about how creatives can thrive, right? We know that during the pandemic, we saw a lot of people lose their livelihoods in like an instant. We had a lot of communities that had to just hunker down and worry about like taking care of elders, taking care of getting people fed. And so extending from that, understanding that creatives are also a big part of creative and culture bearers are a part of carrying messages, carrying, innovation, ideas, and knowledge that is like ancient and that is still relevant today. So convening that into a place where we can talk about how we can change, transform sort of what we see as our arts and culture industry, right,
Yeah.
and the sectors, how we can use really cool innovations like digital access and streaming, how things like healthcare are still a big issue for cultural workers and folks who are in the sphere of making sure that culture has a way to be forwarded. And so how do we make sure that we can keep our communities healthy and thrivent? And how can we make sure that we center and we celebrate and support arts and culture in a way that actually helps our whole society thrive?
Well, and also, as you mentioned, archiving some of the content, the videos. I know earlier you mentioned being able to give the audio files to some of the performers so that they could use it to enhance their career and mixes they saw fit. Like, I think all that is great, and it's enabling. Like you're enabling the community to really grow and enabling them to have their careers and continue to move on to the next level. So that caught my attention when we were talking earlier. So that's great.
What I loved about, the pandemic was obviously really challenging and still is for a lot of folks, just, being worried about health all the time. But I think one of the things that we saw as like an opportunity to think differently and transform was like, here's this 50-year-old, we literally celebrated our 50th anniversary in 2021 during a time when we couldn't gather in the way that people thought of us as sort of our traditional,
Yeah.
like this is folk life, right? But because we had come so hard on the heels of the lockdown in 2020, we had a decision to make. Do we just not do anything? Do we postpone? What do we do? And what the decision came down to it was we will use the means that we have. A lot of our staff utilized like resources and connections, and so we did one of the first digital festivals, I think, of its kind during that time. I mean, there are a lot of people that were doing digital things, but I think to have an entire folk festival move towards, obviously a smaller, but, sort of this gathering of like, we got to see folks in their homes, like a little piece of their
Yeah.
life as an artist or as a culture bearer,
Yeah.
doing the dance, those like in their yard, right, with their family, because that's who you could be surrounded by at that time, and then broadcasting that out. That first year we had 83 countries tuning in.
That's awesome.
Probably relatives of folks, probably like just of interest of like, what is this thing that's happening online. But we've also seen that as a charge, that accessibility is really important for so many reasons, that we've just take that as the initiative to forward that and continue that. Now that we're back in person, we have the streaming elements. We have a film fest that streams along with the live film fest. We have live streaming from one of the stages, and then we bring a lot of folks in that either maybe can't be at the festival or like want to participate in a different way onto like pre-records and then stream that, so that we have all these different methods of people interacting with this sort of legacy event, but in ways that hopefully continue to stay relevant and keep it much more relevant and accessible for the public and the population.
And I agree. That's the innovation. The way things are definitely going is that element of inclusivity, really. Like, you don't need to necessarily be there in person, or if you can't even make it out, you can still be like associated and bring yourself in to be more included in the overall show. So I love that element. Like that's kind of the stuff we do here too, is to create more inclusivity for people that can't make it, can't fly in, or maybe are underprivileged. So it's definitely a way to kind of create more access and then more community that's even connected to the events that other people are at. So it's great. So if people want to get in touch with you or they have any questions, how can they reach you?
Yeah. Go to nwfolklife.org. Obviously, as we're speeding towards the festival on May 24th through 27th, there's going to be a lot of stuff on our website. But it's also a great way to keep tabs on what we're doing year round. We have community concerts out with Metier Brewing in their Cherry District, Cherry Street public house. We work with Town Hall. We have partnerships with Bothell, Tacoma Arts Live, and the Washington State History Museum. So it's also a way to get a little bit of those fixes throughout the year when it's not the festival in itself, but like sort of that getting that element of community gathering and really celebrating the arts and cultures that are here in the region.
Great. Well, Reese, thanks for coming out and sitting down with us so that we can hear more about the festival and really get connected. And anybody out there that really wants to check it out, like, I definitely recommend it. I personally love the festival itself as well. So thanks again for coming out. Really appreciate it.
Thank you for doing this. This is wonderful.
Of course. You're welcome.